So this time we're going to look at determining outliers if the data is skewed or if it's not normally distributed or symmetrical. So this time we want to look at the data set the same data set, but this time we want to do net worth. And so remember that if it's skewed, that means either the mean or the mean and the median are not equal or closely equal to each other. So I've calculated the mean and the median for you, and we find out that the mean is $88.09 billion and the median is $76.17 billion. And so we can see here that the mean is greater than the median, and it's greater by quite a bit. And so that means that there's some data values, or at least one data value, that's pulling the data to the right. So this is skewed because the mean is much greater than the median. And we can look at the box plot here, and we can see that the right side here, the right whisker, is much longer than pretty much the whole graph. And so we know that it's being pulled to the right in some fashion. And so instead of using the normal distribution, because the data is not symmetric, we're going to use what they call the interquartile range. So remember, a quartile, we're talking about the box plot here. So we're talking about the relationship to the median, not the mean. The mean is what we use for normal distribution, because in a normal distribution, the mean and the median are approximately equal to each other. And in normal distribution, we use the two standard deviation rule, if you will. So anything within 2 standard deviations considered normal, anything outside of 2 standard deviations considered an outlier. And so now the difference here is this rule is taking this range of the quartiles, so from our first quartile to our third quartile, so that's the range. So again, a range is the maximum minus minimum. So this time we're going to take quartile 3 minus quartile 1. And to determine if it's an outlier, we're going to do 1.5 times that range value, and it's the quartile 1, so it's whatever this quartile 1 value is minus 1.5 times that interquartile range. That's considered an outlier. Or if it's greater than quartile 3 plus 1.5 times IQR. This might be better. I'm just going to edit this so it doesn't seem quite as weird, maybe. Okay, so let's look at the data that we are working with. And so I'm going to go to our data set, and here's the net worth of data, and I'm going to copy that, and I am going to go to Desmos. I can find it here, this screen. Okay, so going to Desmos. And I still have all those commands in there, so I'm just going to go to my next line, and I'm going to do L and paste my data, and so now it gives me all that information. Here's our mean and our median. Okay, and now we have max, min, quartile 1, quartile 3, and of course the standard deviation. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to label our box plot that we have. So our minimum is 39.4. So this value is 39.4. Our first quartile is 56.9. Our median is 76.7. Our third quartile is 101.8. and our maximum is 230.2. Okay, so we're going to find this interquartile range. So we're going to take 108 or 101.8, and we're going to subtract the 56.9 to get our interquartile range value. So we end up with $44.9 billion. And now we're going to take quartile 1, which is 56.9. Okay, so we're going to take quartile 1. So we want to know, so an outlier will be less than, if it's less than 56.9 minus 1.5 times 44.9. We do that calculation. And we end up with an answer or value of negative 10.45. So we know that there's no net worth less than 0. So we know that there's not going to be any lower end outliers. Now we're going to take for the other outlier, to look at that, we're going to take the upper value, so 101.8 plus 1.5 times the range, which is 44.9, and we do this calculation. And that gives us 169.15. So now we look at our data set, and our data set is in order, so that's nice. So 169.15, and so any number that's greater than 169.15, and so here we have two values, both of these values are above our 169.15, so we have two outliers in this data set. And one way we can see that, so if we're back in our Desmos, if we do a box plot, and we're doing it for L, and again, I'm going to zoom this box plot, but this time I'm going to notice how it's checkmarked to exclude outliers. We can see our two outliers of 225.6, and we have another outlier of 230.2. So this is indicating that there are outliers within our data set, and we can check that by this interquartile rule, range rule, that allows us to find out outliers of data that is skewed. So that means that the mean and the median are not equal to each other.